As it's known, the strong evidence has proved that the most serious human rights crimes of the 21st century, which the CCP government has been committing against Uyghurs and the other Turkish Muslims in East Turkistan, under the pretext of counterterrorism, regional security, and the economic development, is genocide. At the same time, the world is witnessing that the CCP stretching its bloody hands abroad and violating the human rights and the civil liberties by slandering innocent Uyghurs as terrorists, having them arrested and extradited through Interpol, taking their relatives in the country as hostages and forcing them to spy for themselves, or threatening those who participate the protest activities against its appalling human rights violations. Thus, the CCP's unmatched movement in scale and complicity are having an irreversible impact on the lives of Uyghur and other Turkish Muslims and the survival of a community. Therefore, the CCP is facing the world's reaction in the forms of protests, condemnations, and sanctions. Besides the above reasons, the possibility of using famous brands that have been proven to employ Uyghurs as slave workers in the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics also caused many countries to declare diplomatic boycott, international organizations imposing boycott, and some famous athletes' decisions not to participate in these games. In the past, the International Olympic Committee, which showed that it was interested in human rights issues elsewhere by investigating the salaries and the working conditions of the construction workers in Sochi and the Japanese Olympics. However, the committee looks at China at a different angle. By allowing this game to be held in the capital of a regime that completely violated the spirit of Olympic Games, the committee not only mocked its own statute of the game as respect for universal and ethnic principles, but by declaring that they were unaware of the Nazi camps in Turkestan, has also undertaken the task of covering up the CCP's crimes against humanity. It's a fact that remaining silent against crimes only instigate crimes and increase the courage of the criminals. Let's remember the Olympics that held by Adolf Hitler in Berlin in 1936. In that Olympic Games, Hitler delayed temporarily his anti-Semitic agenda and plans for the regional expansion, using the Games to leave a peaceful and tolerant Germany image to the world, and succeeded. As a result of the US and other Western democracies missing a chance to take a stance that could pause Hitler and strengthen the international resistance against Nazi tyranny. Therefore, it created an opportunity for Germany's expansionist policy, the Holocaust, and the Second World War by not boycotting these Olympics. The spirit of the mentioned Olympic is clearly reflected in the coming Beijing Olympics, because just like Nazi, the CCP will use this activity for its own benefit and will not only carry out its wild actions in the country, but also will do its best to realize its dream of the domination of the world with the opportunity and the courage provided to it. In other words, everyone in the world will suffer from the persecution of the CCP regime eventually. It's observed that the IOC has come to the conclusion that politics does not affect the decision-making process regarding the events, believing that the CCP, which vehemently denies the Uyghur genocide, will allow the athletes to express their opinions on the issues such as the Uyghur and the concentration camps at the press conference will be held during the Olympics. As the world has witnessed, the CCP has demonstrated in all its actions that it has so far failed to abide its own laws, the agreement signed with any states, or the promise made to the international organizations. For example, before the 2008 Beijing Olympics, it promised to the IOC that it would improve its human rights records and ensure media freedom, but has been committing the unprecedented human rights violation since then. On the other hand, the CCP, which hides its brutal policies in the country, failed to hide Omicron, a variant of COVID-19 was seen in Tianjin, a city that is 100 kilometers away from Beijing. Informations keep coming that the aforementioned virus spreads rapidly in many provinces of the country and can't be controlled. Therefore, sending athletes to these Olympics would not only push them into the malicious and dangerous environment, but would also put them at risk of being infected with the chilling Chinese virus and its variants. We urge the IOC Board of Directors to uphold its own principles and values by taking the right, ethical, and responsible decision. Withdraw all the athletes from the Olympics and cancel the games completely. We expect the athletes preparing to participate in these games to follow the example of the honorable athletes who boycotted the games. Avoid supporting the human rights violation committed by the CCP for the sake of the winning medals, and boycott these games for both themselves and the global society's safety. We also hope that international media will continue to wake up the world, not forget the CCP's persecution of human rights, especially the Uyghur genocide. Thank you.